Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the May National Park Planning Committee. Are there any apologies for absence, please?
Apologies from Francis Nicholson and Evelyn Stacey.
Thank you. So, apologies from Francis Nicholson and Evelyn Stacey. And Dr. Kelly has declared an interest in this item? First item? Yes. In the first item, so he has chosen not to be present at the meeting. Are there any declarations of interest or lobbying of members from the other members, please? I am aware that we have all received an email from Mr. Harrison, so we will note that. Going around the room, are there any others, please? Mr. Yevsey?
Yes, I received a further email as well from a resident, including 2 consultation submissions that were already on the planning portal that were already read and reviewed.
And that is in relation to item 6.1?
And that is in relation to item 6.1.
Thank you. Mr. Freeman? Ms. Bray? Mrs. Lawrence? Mr. Smith? Mr. Dean?
No.
Mr. Horton? No. Right, thank you. So, the minutes of the planning meeting held on the 1st of April are included as item 3. May I take them as a true record, please? Thank you. All those in favour? Any matters arising from page 1? From page 2? Right, thank you. I'm not aware of any matters of urgency under item 4. Under item 5, we have a number of members of the public who have asked to speak or who have submitted written representations. I can confirm that all members have read the written representations which have been made available to us. So we will in that case take the public speakers for the items for which they are relevant. We come then to development management, and the first item is 6.1, the proposed reinstatement of the railway line between Killington Lane and Cricketfield Lane, Harricombe. And I am going to ask Mrs. Dale, please, to introduce this item.
Thank you, Chairman. I hope I pressed the right button. As the Chairman has explained, this application relates to the reinstatement of the former Linton and Bartwell Railway line together with the formation of a new halt. The reinstatement is approximately 941 metres, or 0.6 miles, in length from Killington Lane to the new halt at Cricketfield Lane, as outlined in red. A committee site visit was held on the 25th of April. Some members will have had the benefit of that. Members have before them a detailed report which considers the main planning matters. Officer's recommendation is for refusal on matters of impact on landscape and hedged assets arising from the proposed halt at Cricketfield Lane. I will take members through the proposed route with the following slides and will make further comments. The works include the repair of the track, reinstatement of the original drainage, ballast, sleepers and rails. It also includes the removal of 4 5-metre sections of footway and the erection of fencing on both sides of the railway corridor. This slide shows a more detailed plan of the proposed works at Killington Lane. This is the existing halt. The existing sidings will be realigned with the original line. The line would then reinstate the existing cutting and the track would go under the road. The ground level is supposed to be lowered by approximately 3.2 metres. This slide shows the continuation of the works from Killington Lane towards Harricombe Lane. The works will also include the renovation and reinstatement of Castle Creek accommodation bridges, which can be seen on this slide. slide shows the proposed bridge at the new road bridge at Killington Lane. It shows the excavation that's required underneath Killington Lane at 3.2 metres. This slide shows a photo of the existing halt at Killington Lane. It's taken with a public highway behind. A train can also be seen in the photo. The line here would be slightly realigned, in line with the original line to the right, and we're going to a cutting underneath the road to show you the road bridge at Killington Lane. This photo is taken from Killington Lane south towards Paracombe Lane. The concrete posts and rails that you can see in the left-hand side photo remain in place, and in relation to the right-hand side photo, they're on the left hand of that right-hand photo. This photograph was provided by the applicant, which shows an historic photo of the original bridge at Killington Lane. Sorry. This photo is looking towards Killington Lane, with Cricketfield Lane behind us. The line would run across the field, there. So it would, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but it would run just across here and towards this gateway here, which then leads further on to Paracombe Lane Head further down. This photo is a zoomed in photo of the gateway that I just outlined to you in the previous slide. The formation of the track line, the original track, can be seen in this photograph. This photograph looks back towards Killington Lane. The remains of the former railway line can be seen in the existing land formation. A public footpath runs parallel with this line. This photograph also shows it's looking back towards Killington Lane. This is a more detailed plan of the works at Paracombe Lane. There's a public just to the left. Just to the left-hand side here of the track is a purple line, and that is the public footpath. The line will go into a reinstated cutting that goes underneath Paracombe Lane. The members stood on the road here at Paracombe Lane. We reviewed it on site. The cutting would be reinstated by approximately 3.2 metres. The width of the fence line, as we were asked on site, and I clarified that, the width of the fence line at Paracombe Lane is approximately 18 metres. So the fence line corridor that lines the corridor row is approximately 18 metres. The line of the track follows the bank where it goes to the bridge in the road, and the cutting would be reinstated. So it follows around here. This is one of the parapets of Paracombe Lane Bridge. Members saw this when we visited on site. And will be here. It will go underneath at 3.2 metres. The applicant provided some historic photos of the original bridge at Paracombe Lane. This is looking from Killington Lane, and this is looking from Cricketfield Lane. This is a zoomed in site plan of the works from Paracombe Lane to Cricketfield Lane, following the original reinstatement of the line. A new halt is proposed here at Cricketfield Lane to provide a level surface for a runaround loop. This is where the concerns are, as it involves raising the ground level by approximately 1.8 metres to form an embankment. Headon Hall is just off plan to the south, and the purple line is the public right of way. And here. This photo is taken from Paracombe Lane, looking down towards Cricketfield Lane. This photo is taken looking back towards Paracombe Lane, where the line would be in a cutting that goes under the road there. This photo is taken from Century Lane, lies in front of Headon Hall, looking up towards the Holt. Should be, mouse just up here. This is looking from where we stopped at, Cricket Field Lane when we walked up it. This is where that is, looking back towards Harrison Lane. The new Holt with the rear line would be here, just to the right hand side of the photo. And the ground level will be raised up here by 1.8 metres. This photo is taken from Cricket Field Lane, looking back down towards Century Lane here. Where this hedgerow is, where is the boundary to Century Lane, which is above right away. And Nifty Headon Hall here just behind it. This is also the boundary of the conservation area here. The proposed cross section for the work at Cricket Field Lane, which shows the raising of the ground level to Craig's embankment by 1.8 metres. This is an aerial photograph taken of the site. You can see the A39 here, runs along the northern boundary. This is Headon Hall, this is Headon Hall, and it's listed kitchen garden wall, and there's also the boundary for the conservation area. The formation of the engineered linear embankment and its associated infrastructure caused harm to the character and appearance of the landscape and caused less than substantial harm to the significance of the heritage asset, the Parrington Conservation Area, Grade 2 listed Headon Hall and the kitchen garden wall. The open pastoral landscape that surrounds the site is specifically mentioned in the Parrington Conservation Area appraisal and is important when considering the landscape and significance of the heritage asset. The proposed embankment would erode the largely natural and undeveloped setting of the landscape and heritage asset and the positive contribution this makes to the significance of the heritage asset. It is clear from the report that officers consider that the public benefits attributed to the proposed development would not outweigh the harm identified to the character and appearance of the landscape or the less than substantial harm to the significance of the designated heritage asset. For those reasons, the application is recommended for refusal as set out in the report. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dale. Can I just point out to members and members of the public that in addition to our planning officers this afternoon, we have with us Mr. Tim Leader, who is acting as our legal representative today. Just in case you wanted to know who was sitting here at this table. So we now come to our public speakers. Mr. Harrison is our first speaker. Mr. Harrison, you're also speaking on behalf of 3 others, reading their statements. I wonder if you would mind reading their statements in order while you're there to save you having to keep on getting up and going back and coming up again. So would you mind reading all of the statements whilst you're seated at the table?
Okay.
Would that be all right?
Hopefully people won't get too bored with my voice.
I'm sure we won't. So we'll start then, Mr. Harrison, if we may, with your own.
Well, do you mind if I leave that to the last?
Entirely up to you.
Okay.
Entirely up to you, as long as you make it clear on behalf of you.
Yeah, I'll do them in turn. I won't merge them together. I'll make sure.
Okay, so you will have 2 minutes for each of those statements and 2 minutes for your own from when you start to speak.
Okay, so this first statement is from Stuart and Carol Glowing, who are the owners of Headon Hall, and I only got this email like you did this morning, so it's a long one, so I'm only going to read out a particular section that I think is particularly relevant. The proposal is to use the land known as Cricket Field Lane to gain access to the new terminus from Century Lane public footpath. However, there is no public right-of-way along Cricket Field Lane. That's Carol and Stuart Blowing, own the land on both sides of Cricket Field Lane along its entire length, apart from the centre part at the level of the disused railway, and therefore we own Cricket Field Lane under common law principles and ad medium filum. That's fill to the middle. Anyone wanting to use Cricket Field Lane would therefore need my permission. No one has approached us regarding our ownership of Cricketfield Lane. They then go on to detail serious, I won't read it all, serious concerns about flooding and drainage issues, which are prevalent along the Cricketfield Lane, saying that the planning application form states no flooding problem, which is absolutely not true. Their words, we have severe concerns about the fact that flooding problems were denied in the proposals.
Okay, thank you.
So this one is from Lee Willocks, who lives at Fairview in Paragon. The railway says this scheme will bring in 5,000 extra paying passengers each year, but there's no evidence to back that up. At a meeting in Paragon last July, John Barton from the railway admitted that number was just a finger in the air. He said there might be a small rise at first, but then things would settle back down. Despite that, the application now claims 5,000 more passengers, as if it's a solid fact. It's not. It's just been made up. This number cannot be trusted, and when you weigh that against the damage this project could do to our landscape, I don't see how the planning committee can approve it. The best summary I've heard about why this application should be refused came from a long-standing member of Linton and Barnstaple Railway. They wrote the following on a forum just a few days ago on the 26th of April. This is the Linton and Barnstaple Railway member. There is only one reason for the scheme. The LNBR members are desperate to have a longer running line. This is a longer running line, just. The previous scheme having collapsed, there was an impatience to do something. This is something, so that's what they are doing. It adds almost nothing to the current operation, might not be capable of being built, obstructs any further expansion, destroys the existing historical track bed, and will cost almost £2 million in the process. That's from a member of the railway, and I could not have put it better myself. Thank you for listening. It's from Lee. This statement is on behalf of Stuart Wallace of Breakbrook in Paragon. Stuart's currently away in Iceland with work. The planning officers rightly conclude that the proposed extension of the railway will bring some additional economic benefits. The key question is whether these economic benefits are sufficient to outweigh the significant harms that have been identified. It is possible to make an order of magnitude estimate of these economic benefits. I comment, Stuart comments, as someone with considerable experience of economic appraisal, including being called as an expert witness on HS1 and HS2 by the Public Accounts Committee. The main lasting economic benefits will come from additional visitor and volunteer spend. The 2021 ARAP report commissioned by the railway calculated the gross value add for this category of spend, based on the railway being extended all the way from Woody Bay to Whistling Pound, at £1.3 million over 10 years, or approximately £130,000 per annum. This was based on an additional 55,000 passengers per year. The extension to Cricketfield Lane under consideration is estimated to generate 5,000 additional passengers per year, and thus pro-rating for this much lower number of passengers gives an annual gross value add of only £11,800. This is statistically negligible at only 0.003% of the tourist economy of Greater Exmoor, which is estimated at about £400 million. I therefore strongly support the Planning Officer's recommendation to reject this application.
Thank you.
Last one, you'll be glad to hear. This is mine. Much of my working life was spent creating and evaluating investment appraisals. I completely agree with the statement just read out on behalf of Stuart Wallace. The local plan stipulates that there must be demonstrable and significant public benefit for a development such as this to be approved, and I'm afraid it is just not there. The applicant chose not to submit any sort of economic analysis with this application. They simply referred to a report prepared in 2021 by Arup that was solely focused on an extension from Woody Bay to Whistling Pound. It's worth emphasising that the numbers that Stuart quotes from this Arup report are all based upon assumptions that are wholly positive for the applicant. If any of these assumptions turned out to be slightly optimistic, then the minuscule benefits Stuart quoted would get even smaller and even less significant. Planning officers have balanced these facts against the numerous and obvious harms, such as raising ground levels by at least 1.8 metres over a length of 50 metres, building a train station in a place where there never was one and there is an obvious alternative, and having zero regard to the inevitable increase in traffic and parking issues in Paracoon. On top of all this, the applicant's plans are predicated by people walking along Cricketfield Lane, which is not owned by the applicant and is not a public right-of-way, something that has been repeatedly highlighted by Susan Applegate, the public right-of-way officer. The reasonable person would surely conclude that these harms outweigh the possible benefits. That's certainly what the 61 residents of Paracoon and Martinhoe who wrote letters of objection concluded. Compare this with just 12 residents who wrote letters of support. Local residents, consultees and planning officers have all concluded that this application should be refused, and I sincerely hope that members agree.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harrison, for that marathon effort, and I appreciate you putting them together. Thank you.
Thank you. Just in case that can be misinterpreted, I only rate the last one. The other three were put together by other people.
So, number 3 on the public speakers list is Mr. Bulmer, and his statement has been printed for members and we have read it. He is in support. Number 4 was Mr. Stephen Harding, likewise a statement to be printed for members and also one of support. Number 5 was Peter Colley, statement to be printed for members, also in support. All of these members have read. So we come to speaker number 7, who is Mr. Grob. So Mr. Grob, if you would come to the speaker's table, please. You have 2 minutes from when you start to speak.
Thank you. So further to the opinion you received from our King's Counsel regarding the EIA and the obvious salami slicing of the extension, I'd like to point out on other issues where this application fails. Under R2S2 reinstatement of Linton and Barnstable Railway, paragraph B, any additional new development over and above the original historic former railway should provide demonstrable evidence that it is essential for the operation of the reinstated former railway, or is a restoration of a historic feature and that there are no alternative solutions which could reasonably meet the need for the development in any other way. The proposed halt is not essential, as there is already a halt at Killington Lane, and the railway own the halt at Paracoon, and a new halt 250 metres from an existing one can hardly be deemed essential. I think it probably fails under paragraphs C to J2. There is absolutely not a needs case for the extension. It would add no extra jobs, and after a brief uplift in passenger numbers, when the extension opens, as the promoters themselves admitted, it will soon return to the current numbers. Obviously, the majority of reasons raised against the reinstatement of Paracoon Halt under the Section 73 application remain relevant. Loss of amenity, burning of fossil fuels, access, parking, noise, pollution, rights of way, public facilities, etc. At the time of the Section 73 application, the promoters stated they already had the funds to get to Bridge 64, and construction to Paracoon would take 18 months. It seems it's now a 4-year build, which I believe relates directly to their lack of funds. I believe enough has been said to ensure this application is refused, enough time spent and enough money wasted. Over the years, the promoters have demonstrated that they will do and say anything to get this unnecessary extension built. Their financial projections and fundraising capacity has come back to haunt them. They already operate a section of railway at Woody Bay that's visited by no more than 2% of the park's annual visitors. It's as long as most tourist joyrides and can never be more than a joyride. It certainly can never qualify as a transport link, operate as a park and ride, carry freight, serve the farming community, or take children to school or locals to the shops.
Thank you, Mr. Robb. And our next speaker is Mr. Scott. Louis Scott. You'll have 2 minutes when you start to speak.
This application comes on the back of the lapsed, more ambitious plan to extend Blackmore Gate. Much public time, money and commitment was made to give the LBR Trust the opportunity to realise that goal. But they failed because so much of what they hoped would come to fruition simply didn't. To a professional person, this is no surprise. Their forecasts, socio-political, practical, environmental, economical, etc., have always lacked the forensic detail of a plausible and realisable scheme. And this application presents more of the same. Much of it not even substantiated by updated detail to give it sufficient relevance now. The difference today is that there can be no benefit of the doubt because the LBR has previously failed in meeting its own targets, which demonstrates their lack of understanding and incompetence. There can be no need for this new infrastructure, as LBR own the track bed through to the Holt, which marks the heritage stop waterfill point. The recent site visit highlighted many discrepancies, not helped by the attitude of the LBR, which was in favour of bending between the rules to fit their objectives, sometimes under the guise of new build and sometimes applying the rule of heritage, happily casual to slip between the two, ignoring health and safety inquiries. And where was the highways representative? With 2 significant road crossings, it was evidently remiss. The LBR describes itself as a heritage railway line, despite the fact that it operates as a tourist theme ride. And for this reason, I think that health and safety requirements, both in the build and in its operation as a tourist ride, should be of some significance in the planning conversation, especially in schemes of this scale. Lastly, I'd like to raise the point that this permanent new development would without hesitation become temporary given any encouragement to go further in joining the dots to Blackmore Gate, making this disruptive and intrusive plan totally unsustainable and shamelessly flawed in its representation. I support the Park's recommendation. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Robb. Our next speaker is Jo Harrison, please. Ms. Harrison, you will have 2 minutes from when you start to speak.
I would like to focus on the raising of the ground levels at the proposed halt at Cricketfield Lane. The planning officer and Yvonne this morning states that these ground levels will be at about 1.8 metres and considers that this represents significant harm to the landscape and the setting of the Grade 2 listed Headon Hall and the Barracombe Conservation Area. And both the Futures Landscape Officer and the Heritage Officer agree with that conclusion. My point is that the figure of 1.8 metres represents a very generous, low estimation for the applicant. The reality is that in very many places over that distance of 50 metres, the ground level will be raised by more than that. When you examine the cross-section, the raised embankment upon which the railway will sit is between 2 metres and 3 metres above the original track bed level. Those cross-sections for members are SL1, SL2 and SL3. Additional information was submitted in November which gave more precise measurements for a particular spot of the applicant's choosing at Cricketfield Lane. At this spot, the new rail level will be 1.902 metres, so 6'4", not 6 foot, above the existing ground level at the spot in question, and 2.743 metres above the level of the field below the railway. And those numbers do not include the platform, which will add another 0.5 metres to these levels. And of course they don't include the train itself, which will be stationary at Cricketfield Lane for about an hour every day as it performs its run-around manoeuvres. That development would therefore dominate the landscape and irreparably change the look and the feel of the area, something which the authority is compelled to protect as a priority. And for that reason alone, I believe that the application should be refused, and I hope that the members concur.
Thank you very much. Our 10th statement is also one that has been printed from Mr. Ian Kay, and that was one of support. So that then brings us to speaker 11, and that is Rick Auger, who is the applicant's agent.
I'll be my colleague here will be talking for us. I'm handing over to others.
So I'm replacing Nigel Phelps. My name's John Phelps.
Right, in that case, Mr. Hill. Now, you are speaking for yourself.
Speaking on behalf of Linton and Barnstable Railway Trust.
Okay,
as
but
agent.
indeed, so but you are, so to speak, only speaking as one speaker, and
Yes.
therefore you will have 2 minutes from when you start to speak.
That's correct. Yes.
Right, thank you. Mr. Hill.
Thanks so much. ARIP are proud to support the Linton and Barnstable Railway Trust in this, the latest application. The National Park Authority has established the principle of development as acceptable through the grant of planning permissions in 2018 and 2021, both of which have now elapsed. We considered the application put before you to be compliant with planning policy, specifically RTS2, which advocates the reinstatement of the railway. Despite this, the application is recommended refusal on heritage and landscape grounds. With regard to these points, from a heritage perspective, the officers acknowledge that there are no direct impacts to heritage assets. However, the setting would be impacted. It is noted that the head and hall and the associated kitchen wall and conservation area are 100 metres to the south of the site. The significance of its setting is derived from its grounds to the south of head and hall. It is noted that there is less than substantial harm, and in the officers' assessment against Para 215, we do consider there to be clear and convincing public benefits. These include impacts to local tourism, visitor experience, increase to visitor spend in local business, and employment opportunities, notably the full-time, part-time and apprenticeship opportunities provided by the Trust, as well as the construction phase. From a landscape perspective, the railway and heritage railway aspects form an important part of the cultural heritage and landscape features that we see within the landscape today. RTS2 supports the reinstatement of the Railway Trust's proposals, and the infrastructure would not be new or incongruous within the landscape. In conclusion, given the assessment given, we do consider that the level of harm is to be inflated and the landscape impact to be inflated also. We therefore urge officers to recommend approval for the application.
Right, thank you very much, Mr. Hill. And our final speaker, as far as I'm aware, is Mr. Barton, John Barton. And Mr. Barton, you're speaking on behalf of a number of people, so I am going to allow you to have up to 5 minutes, as you are rolling together a number of other comments in your representation.
Thank you very much, Chairman.
Okay. So you'll have 5 minutes from when you start to speak.
Thank you. The Linton Barnstable Railway Association was formed in 1979, with the first passenger trains running in 2004. We've demonstrated steady growth over the years, contributing to local tourism and catering for our members and rail enthusiasts alike. Such growth has resulted in the Linton and Barnstable Railway Trust reaching a current net asset value exceeding £7 million. This is comprised of land, buildings, locomotives and rolling stock. The majority of this investment has been funded by our members. Their unwavering generosity and drive has helped develop a nationally recognised, award-winning heritage railway, enjoyed by local residents and thousands of visitors to Exmoor National Park and North Devon. The railway is an important direct contributor to the local economy, demonstrating a supply chain of more than 45 North Devon businesses who supply products and services required by the ongoing operation. The railway employs 5 full-time staff, 3 part-time staff and 1 apprentice. They are ably supported by our regular team of skilled volunteers, and turnover last year was £457,884. In addition, the Old Station Inn, acquired 2 years ago, employs 7 full-time staff and 28 part-time workers, and turnover last year was £811,000. The railway is a popular local attraction. Our locals' EX and TA postcode week has just ended, and we carried 1,758 passengers over an 8-day period, demonstrating the value and local interest in the railway here within the park. A common question we are asked by visitors is whether the line can be extended to further enhance the railway offer and visitor experience. Demand for a longer journey is clearly demonstrated. This planning application has been prepared following expiry of the 2018 planning approval for reinstatement of the railway between Killington Lane and Blackmore Gate. This application covers just the first section of reinstatement between Killington Lane and Cricketfield Lane. The development plans are the same as those approved in 2018, with the exception of the proposed new halt at Cricketfield Lane. This is to avoid running trains into the original halt at Parakum. The decision to seek reinstatement to Cricketfield Lane was taken to mitigate views expressed on the prospect of trains stopping at Parakum Halt in relation to the original planning application and the Section 73 planning application that was withdrawn in 2023. The site chosen is not visible from public land. It is located 300 metres northwest of the original halt and lies 100 metres outside of the designated conservation area boundary. This facility will allow the locomotive to safely run past its carriages ready to pull them on the return journey to Woody Bay in a similar way to that operated at Killington Lane Halt. The new halt will sit on a tapering embankment 0.4 metres higher than the similar arrangement at Killington Lane Halt, representing a minimal impact on the landscape and designated heritage assets. We have worked hard within competing constraints of the topography, planning policy, safety guidance and local opinions to develop this scheme. Given the previous grant of planning permission and the considered design approach, the Linton and Barnstaple Railway Trust considered these proposals provide a solution that would also serve to enhance the visitor experience and appreciation of the National Park. We therefore urge members to consider the clear public benefits of the scheme and support this nationally recognised heritage railway development. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Barton. So that brings to a close the public speaking part of this item. So we will now move to member debate. Members. Mr. Trinos.
Well, I can say that having looked at the application information on the portal and read the officer's report, I came today sort of minded against the development in favour of the officer's recommendation. And subsequent to that, having listened to speakers, I haven't really changed my mind. And I may yet to go depending on the content of the debate amongst members. So that was really just to say where I'm at the moment.
Good. Thank you very much. Mr. Bray.
Thank you much to all the speakers for giving me some more information, and to the officers for a very detailed report. Lots of reading, of course. I want to clarify a few things in my mind. We've accepted most of the line, or all the line, up until the halt at the end is within the existing policies, and the contention is around the halt stop, isn't it? And in particular, the cutting 1.8. And also, it's clarified, that's over 50 metres long, isn't it?
Yeah.
50 metres, yeah. I also want to clarify, we're referring to, and I say this as a chartered engineer, I'm used to dealing with drawings and cuttings, we're referring to it as a 1.8 metre embankment, but actually, viewed from one side, it's 1.8 metres, viewed from the other side, it's as little as 1 metre, isn't it? And then you go to section 2, 1.2, you go to section 3, it's visible. So I think we've got to be careful calling it 1.8 metre embankment, because if you bought the material for that, you'd overread. And then you go to section 4. So I just want to clarify, we are talking about that embankment, which is 1.8 metres from one side, 1 metre from the other side, obviously tapering back to nothing.
Could I just ask Mrs. Dillon to comment on that, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, so the land rises from Headmore back up to the A39. So the 1.8 raised embankment will be seen from the boundary of the heritage asset.
Yeah.
And it will taper back to the halt with the runaround loop for the train carriages.
Okay, so from the impact on the heritage asset,
It's the 1.8. It'll be this side exactly.
Okay.
1.8 is this side, and it'll taper back up in line with the land formation. Well,
and it's not visible from the roads. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I wanted to clarify that, and then, of course, there is that balance of the impact of that on the landscape and the heritage asset, as we've been said. And then I start and read through the report and what are the benefits. We've heard discussion on what are the benefits. The officers have accepted there is benefit. The senior landscape officers made a very interesting point where they said the impact of the railway line could depend on your position. One is, do you see this as a tourist attraction? And I've heard that phrase used here. The other is, do you see this as reinstating cultural heritage? So if we see this as reinstating cultural heritage, obviously the public benefit is greater. So I'm erring towards seeing this as more of a cultural heritage asset, and therefore the public benefit may be slightly greater than implied in these reports. And therefore balancing that against the impact, I think, is the important thing, isn't it, how we do that. So the public benefit, I see being quite great in terms of increased numbers, nationally recognised. Offset against this cutting is the key thing that we're debating today, really. We talked about the 3.2 metre cutting, which is obviously substantial, but that's existing and that's fully accepted, isn't it? So we're comparing existing 3.2 under the bridge with a 1.8 further down the line, isn't it? So proportion-wise, it's not great in one sense.
Just to be clear, we're looking at an embankment, so it's actually raising the structure up. So it's not the cutting, it's the embankment that I think is the pointed issue.
Yes, I appreciate that, but I mean, the cutting has a big impact on the visual landscape. Start cutting down. I mean, the embankment is almost, I almost seem it's similar to, put it in size, a riding arena embankment. So that's just, I mean,
okay, but without wishing to speak on behalf of the officers, I think that the cutting work is reinstating what was there before. The embankment is new work.
Yes, yeah,
That's the essential difference.
Yes.
Isn't it?
You're correct.
Again, I sort of appreciate that, but in terms of someone walking around there, you'd see this large cutting and then this embankment further down. So yeah, that, in my mind, it's just balancing those two benefits of the scheme, the heritage nationally recognised, the visitor numbers. It obviously provides a lot of employment and volunteering. And I think there's been some good work done. I think the e-coal is going to be used, am I right? Which involves olive nuts, something in it. So I see a lot of areas being covered off quite well, which we've accepted as a park. So yeah, that's where my thinking is now, and I'd like to hear other views before I clarify my thinking.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gray. Mr. Olsen.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for excellent report. Again, quite a read, and also for the comments earlier from members of the public, both for and against. It was very interesting. Okay, I think to me it seems that obviously it comes down to the policy, the RTS2. That's clearly got to guide, and that's been given a lot of importance in the officer's report, and you can see why. Because usually, in fact somebody used the word incongruous earlier, of course it's incongruous. Of course in the landscape a steam train is incongruous, particularly nowadays. It's maybe a heritage asset, but again, that is a subjective view of what is our heritage. So it's incongruous. However, in the local plan, we accept and embrace that incongruity. And we also call for, in the policy, that a proposal to reinstate and replicate the former railway would be looked upon well by this policy. However, this doesn't do that. This does not reinstate the original railway. It does a small part of it and does it differently from how it used to be. So it's not a reinstatement, it's not a replication. It's a small extension with quite a landscape impact. And I think the way this policy has been interpreted in the past has been a reason why we had the Grampian condition applied before, for that reason. Because the idea was, when it was going to go all the way to Blackmore Gate for our application within the park, it would need to be the whole thing in order to comply with this policy. Okay? So that's the way we've interpreted this policy in the past. And I think we need to bear in mind that consistency for how we've read this policy and how we think what it means, I think needs to do that. And I think we've got this additional issue now with what that impact of that additional halt, which wasn't there originally, wasn't part of the original railway, and what that means. And I think this is where going on the site visit was really helpful. The photographs are great, and thanks for taking us through them. But actually seeing, particularly, and I think for Andrew there, it's trying to convey that idea actually of the slope, and the slope, already the slope up from Heaven Hall up to where the existing track bed is, and then to imagine then next to that will be another rise again for this embankment, right? And then when you're seeing that from the bottom of the hill as well, which is of course the important point, you're seeing it from the conservation area or from the existing public right of way, and looking up to that, then it feels like a lot more than 1.8 metres. And also, of course, imagine then the parked train on top of that again, which would be about another 2 or 3 metres. You're looking at, really quite a significant sort of visual impact from that. And I think that, I understand the officers, I think, have really taken that into account in how they're looking at it. And I think so that I think is the balance here between basically, does it apply to this policy as we've previously interpreted it? No, it does not. Does it have a significant landscape impact? Well, it definitely has a landscape impact. We can argue over whether it's significant or not. And the last point I want to make is regarding the economic analysis, because this came up in the site visit, it comes up in the report a little bit, and I just want to caution us, it is not really right to take the 2021 economic analysis report and extrapolate from that and sort of say, oh, well, that related to this many miles of track, and this relates to this many metres of track, and therefore divide one into the other, and hey, that must be what it's worth. That's not how economic analysis works. We do not have an economic analysis for this. We also need to see the difference between a financial analysis and an economic analysis. A financial analysis would look at the internal financial return to the applicant. Okay? And that might speak as to this word essential, as to whether it is essential or not. So basically, does this development, is it essential for the continued survival of the railway as a viable going concern? Well, that case has not been made. An economic case needs to take into account the costs and benefits to society more broadly. And again, that case hasn't been made. It may well be that the costs actually outweigh any of those benefits. And the economic benefit is so small that actually it's outweighed by costs quite significantly. So I think I just need to make sure that the economic case is a bit of a red herring here, and I don't think we should get distracted by that. I think really we need to look at the policy and understand that and see if it fits that, and then take into account in the officer's report about what's been said about the impact of this and the way that it's proposed. Thank you.
Mr. Mr. Elson. Mr. Yabsley.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'm really not terribly comfortable with this proposal, and my discomfort is based largely on many of the things that my colleague here has just brought to our attention within the papers. But it seems it's not going on the same route. It's another halt which was never there, which isn't at anywhere, avoiding Parakou, and we understand previously why there was discomfort with that. But I'm puzzled, Chairman. Is this then a way of getting around Parakou in the future? But I know it's not on the table at the minute, so we can't discuss it. But I'm just puzzled by what the outcome of this would be really. And I think at this point I'm leaning towards proposing we take the opposite recommendation.
Do you wish to actually take that to the point of proposing that we accept the officer's recommendation for refusal? Okay, so Mr. Yabsley, you're proposing refusal in line with the officer's recommendation. Is that seconded by Mr. Elson? Okay, thank you. So that motion is now on the table. Does any other member wish to speak? Mr. Geen.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, this is quite a new thing for me. I've not been involved in this previous application. I think so. It's interesting seeing it on its own. So I read our policy, and it seems that as a national park, we have a policy supporting the reinstatement of this line and making it happen. We protected the land that founded it, and so therefore we need to think how can we make it possible, and when should we make it impossible. So the argument I've been having with myself, taking and hearing what people are saying, is slightly disagree with. It is reinstating the line as far as Cricket Field Lane. That's where the alteration comes. So to me, it's all about that change there. And on the balance of how you look at it, is it bad for landscape? Is it necessary for the future of the railway, the extension? Many projects aren't done in one go. You need to do bits at a time. Is there another solution to this? I don't know, but I do feel that as a national park we're supporting it, but we have to be sure that, I'm absolutely sure that the damage to the landscape is actually negative enough if this is absolutely necessary for the railway to go forward. So this is the arguments I'm having and listening to what's being said. And I understand how people live locally, you either like it or you won't like it. I don't think I particularly like a steam train one field away from where I live, and I can understand that that is it's a big issue, but it's in our plan as being something that we are prepared to support and make work if we can. I think it comes down to the officers, and I'm going on the site visit is really useful, and I was convinced on the day that probably it's more negative for the landscape than it needs to be. If it was making lesser impact, maybe it would be a possibility. If access was less of a problem, in other words, if people get access to the halt without having to use Crystal Lane, that might be a possibility. As it is at the moment, I think, on balance, I would support Councillor Yabsley and would be willing to second what he's just said. But I do think we need to be aware of the dichotomy of what we want to achieve and how we achieve it without making life too difficult.
Thank you, Mr. Dean. It's already been seconded, so you can third.
I'll third and fourth as well, Chairman, if necessary.
But nevertheless,
yes, I'd like to both compliment as I could, the opposition and the people in support of it. I think the arguments are very reasonable, and I was very impressed by the way they were put. Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dean. Does any other member wish to speak who hasn't yet? Particularly those that were on the site visit.
Are you looking at me?
No pressure on Mrs. Smith or Mr. Holden at all. Any who wish to? Right. Mrs. Smith.
Thank you. Yes, I was on the site visit, and I am in favour of this line being reinstated. I think it would be a good idea, and it is, like you say, it's in our local plan. However, having seen where the halt is going to be, I don't think that is a benefit either economically or and I do think it will be a damage to the landscape. So for that reason, I am going to support the recommendation of the officers. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Holton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've had a very good report, and we've had some extremely good input, both for and against this project. As part of Parish Council, we have had a railway issue for very, very many years, and quite frankly, most people in Parish would wish it would be resolved one way or another. Last week, there was a party of walkers from Combe Martin Ladies Walking Club who took the train to Killington Halt, got off the train, walked down to our community cafe, and spent an appreciable amount of money on cake and tea. And today we've had a paper on active travel. Active travel is possible with the current railway alignment, but if this proposal were to be allowed, there is no public access from the station. So the dear ladies from Combe Martin could not come and have tea and cake, and there is therefore no benefit to the immediate area, which is what the economic benefit should all be about. So I too will be following the officer's recommendation.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bray, you want to come back?
Yeah, I just want to clarify, I think Bill did it. When it was said that this isn't reinstating an existing line, I am correct in saying right up until the last 85 metres it is reinstating the line, isn't it? Yes. And we've accepted the policy RTS2 applies. So we don't need to question that, do we? It is just about that halt.
Yeah.
So then I suppose the question in my mind is, do we have to consider the benefit of just that halt versus the landscape impact, or the benefit of the whole scheme and the benefit? I guess you could say without the halt, the current proposal can't work without that halt. So you have to benefit of that, the whole line. Well, so far. It's your comment.
Yeah, Chairman, I mean, there's been a good debate here, and I mean, it's covering essentially what the report's talking about. The report identifies that there's harm in terms of heritage, there's harm in terms of landscape. It is a reinstatement, and that, I mean, I think if you look at the line up there, that's obviously, we can see the historic line there, okay, that's Cricketfield Lane, so, you know, it historically carried on. It would stop at this point, but there's a siding for the turnaround route which goes into this extra area of land here, and that's off the original line, okay, that's where the change is, and the change also comes with the embankment.
Yes.
The Officer report looks at that harm, but it also looks through a planning balance about public benefits, and it considers those.
Yeah.
And the officers have looked at the impact. It's looked at we've looked at the benefits. We've done a balance, and you can see how we've come to our conclusion. Now, you know, through debate, I think some members feel the balance might fall slightly differently. Some seem more to agree with officers on that. But that's the crux of it. You know, the issues at Cricketfield Lane. That's where we think the scheme comes undone as proposed, but we have looked at the public benefits of the scheme as a whole, as presented through the application.
So by refusing this, we're not refusing the principle of the line going on, it's because of that halt, isn't it? So if the halt wasn't there, it's a different, obviously, consideration. So just clear in mind, I'm not saying, if that wasn't there, it would comply with RTS too, wouldn't it? So it is very much focused on that, as you said. Sorry, I'm just clarifying my mind thinking, yes.
Right, members, that has been a helpful debate and discussion. It was a very helpful site visit. I would like to thank all members of the public and representatives of the railway who attended today. The crux, I think, is in section 14, beginning on page 68, when the issues are reversed, and the balance 14.23, as it says, is where we have to be weighing. Now, the motion that we have proposed by Mr Yabsley and seconded by Mr Elson is that we should accept the officer's recommendation for refusal for the reasons given in the report. Unless anyone else now has anything else to say, I will put that to the meeting. May I see all those in favour of refusal, please? Right, that's 7. Those against? And those abstaining? 1 abstention. Right, thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, that one stands refused. Can I thank everybody, though, for their participation and input into this? It was a very useful set of discussions. I would repeat again, it was a very useful site visit, and seeing it in person was enormously helpful. So thank you all very much. I will now pause for a moment to allow members of the public to leave if they wish, but of course you're very welcome to stay for the rest of our scintillating discussion. Right, ladies and gentlemen, from one excitement to another, item 6.2, 6925-002, application under Regulation 3 of the Town and Country Planning General Regulations 1992 for the proposed removal of the air source heat pump and installation of a new air conditioning unit in new location on west elevation of the building. Are you going to combine that with 6.3?
Yes, please.
Right, so we're also considering 6925-003 LB, application under Regulation 3 of the Town and Country Planning General Regulations 1992 for list of building exempt for the proposed removal of the air source heat pump and installation of the new air conditioning unit in the new location on the west elevation of the outbuilding here at Exmoor House. Mr White.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Just to add that the applications come before committee because they're our own applications, so that's why they're here. It is Exmoor House, which we're dealing with. It's actually the garden room to the left-hand side where I'm sat out in the garden. And his name, the proposal simply is to replace a defunct air source heat pump on, or just the front of the building, and replace it with a air conditioning on one side. So on the slide, if we looked out the window now, this picture to the right-hand side is what we would look at. We look at the end gable of the garden room, and that's the air source heat pump against the garden wall to the front of the building. The proposal is to move from that position, okay, and replace it with an air conditioning unit on the end gable. Again, we'd be able to see that if we looked out the window, but hopefully we've got an existing and mocked up proposed. Existing on the left, you can see there's the unit there, that will be removed. Proposed to replace the unit on the end of the building there. Obviously, the Consultant Heritage Officer, he's happy with the scheme. In terms of planning, the application for you considers the details, the report does. It does the same for this building application and finds that the impact in both cases is acceptable. So the officer recommendation is that the Planning Commission be granted and listed building consent also be granted. We'll consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we'll take item 6.2 in terms of voting first, but are there any comments that members wish to make on either? Can I just remind you that we have had a written statement from Mr Watts and Ms Hodson, which I would like you to take notice of, please. And then ask you if you have, members, any comments you wish to make, any debate into which you wish to enter. Mr Bray.
I think it's an improvement. So I would fully support the recommendation of approving it.
Proposing it.
I'll propose it, yes.
Mr. Treves.
Well, I've been trying to think of something useful and informative to say about it, because it just seems in principle wrong to nod through applications, because it might appear to members of the public as if it's our application and we don't pay any much attention to it. I can't think of anything to say, so I'm happy to second it.
Just in terms of the statement from Mr. Watson and Mrs. Hodgson, the essence of this application is that because it is ours, we are considering it.
Yes.
There may be other bigger applications which, for various reasons, we perhaps don't get to see or get considered in a different way. But nevertheless, this is part of being wholly transparent and making it clear that anything that the National Park is granting itself goes through due process. Mr. Watson.
Thank you. No, just confirmation from the officers really that the new air conditioning unit reflects the massing and scale of the old one. If we could make sure that we're happy with that.
From the mock-up it seems to be the same.
Pretty much, Chairman. I mean, that's the existing, there's proposed, so it's, for all intents and purposes, I think it's a little bit smaller, but for all intents and purposes, it's the same.
Right. Mrs. Smith.
Just a clarification, why are we doing this? Is the old one out of date or not working or inefficient? I know it's not really planning, but I just
It doesn't
want
work.
to know from...
The existing one doesn't work, so there's a change.
Chairman, just on the previous point, it's an opportunity to remind people who may be watching this that the reason that certain applications are called in if they're either officers or members of the authority or an authority application, that they're all heard here, as are any applications where the officer's decision or advice is in opposition to parish council. So that just to make sure that people understand that that's why we decided here.
Providing that's for good planning reasons. Right. Okay. Is there anything else that members wish to say? I will take these two applications separately in terms of voting, just so that we're clear about how we've reached our conclusions. But it has been proposed and seconded that we should approve the application 6.2. May I see all those in favour, please? Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? That sounds approved. So moving on to page 84. May I see anybody wishing to propose this? Right.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Does anybody wish to debate this? In which case, may I see all those in favour? And any against? Pass no con. Thank you very much. Good, good, good. So, we now move to item 7, which is application delegated to the Chief Executive. Mr. White. I think we can ignore the first few pages, because we've already dealt with them.
Which ones have been on?
Well, we're happy to ignore the first two pages, aren't we? Because we've already dealt with them. Yeah. We're not quite sure why they've reappeared, but nevertheless, I suppose they're so good they've been drawn to our attention again. On page 3, we have the list of the ones that we haven't considered before. So, is there anything on page 1 that any member wishes to raise? If not, I'll ask Mr. White to comment on anything on that page. Anything there? No? Page 2.
Sorry, Chairman.
Mr. White.
Is it actually page 2 or?
Well, it's page.
It's actually page.
It's page 4.
Sorry,
It's page 4 of item 7.
It's
So page 2 of the applications from
Right. Okay. Sorry.
March.
Me.
We haven't talked about before. Right. Page 4, if you'd rather.
Thank you.
There is a refusal there. 001.
Yeah. Yes, please.
This is an application where they had a commission which said they should put timber windows in their building that they built without planning permission, and they've They didn't wish to do that, so they applied to vary it, but that's been refused. They have the right to appeal, but that's on the will rumble on for a little bit more, I think. There's a conversation over that.
And the top one, the National Trust withdrawal,
Yeah, that stumbled because of flood risk. So they withdrew that to rethink what they might do to address flooding.
Okay. Quite an interesting one, fourth one down, with the subdivision of a larger house to form 2 semi-detached dwellings at Honeymead. Yeah. Right, page 5. Anything there that members wish to ask about?
Yeah, the second one down, or was it the second 2.5 down? The approval not required for demolition of a building.
At Cloud.
Oh, sorry.
At Cloud.
At Cloud, yes. So
Yeah.
why is it some cases they need it and sometimes not?
Well, this one simply it's because it's related to demolition. It's a prior approval for the means of demolition and the how they use the land, isn't it? Yeah. So we can ask for prior approval of those details we think is necessary. In this case, it's a relatively modern portal frame building they were going to remove, which was finished development essentially. So it's straight away.
Because I know at the drive on there's a lot of concrete involved and that's the concrete.
This actually went through the same process as Driver,
Okay.
with the same outcome. It just didn't need to come to committee because we weren't the applicants.
Oh,
so
right.
It actually is no different
Yeah.
to the process of Driver.
Yeah.
Not even come to
I should keep that.
Okay. Anything else on page 5? And the overflow on page 6. Okay. Right, thank you very much. So if there are any site visits, they will be on Friday the 30th of May. Lastly, ladies and gentlemen, can I just say that this is the last meeting officially to be attended by Jeremy Yardley as a member after 20 odd years.
Well, I've been on the county for 24 years,
Yeah.
but I've only done 14 here.
Yeah. Well, you came and then you went and then you came again. Yes. But nevertheless, Mr. Yabsley has been an enduring presence over that time. Much appreciated for his sound common sense and extensive knowledge. And I think it has been a privilege for all of us, Jeremy, to serve with you. And so thank you very much for your dedication to the National Park Authority for so long. You will be much missed, but I hope you will continue to come at least to the annual consultative meeting so that we can see you at that. Only one a year. So thank you very much. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I will declare the meeting closed.